This is me using my mime skills to pretend I'm playing a synthesizer for all of you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and this is a show all about the week in comics. We're going to talk about comic book news. Eventually, I'm going to get to some comic book reviews. There was some really cool stuff that came out this week and some stuff that I wasn't as high on, but there's always positives to talk about there. So let's see. News, reviews, but I love rhyming. How about interviews? Yes, we've got an interview tonight coming to us live. This isn't like pre-recorded where I'm going to have to fill in the questions real quick to fit them in. We've got a guest, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen his work lately. This is a guy who recently has been doing covers for books like Spawn, Vampirella, Absolute, DC stuff, many, many more, as well as writing and drawing his own comic, his own creator-owned comic, as well as cards. Folks, you probably know him and love him. I know that's a cliche, but I think it's fair to say we've got, from Huntsville, Alabama, the scariest man in comics, Mark Spears. I'm just inventing little honorifics for you tonight.
I love the introduction. That was one of the best ever.
Thank you for being here, Mark. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Let's get things easy to begin with. You do a horror comic. You've done some horror covers. You've done lots of horror trading cards. Have you seen any good horror movies lately? Anything you'd recommend? I'm always looking for recommendations if you've seen anything you like, even if it's old.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I saw one today. I don't know if I'd recommend it.
What was it?
It was what was it? Bring Her Back.
I saw that. I thought that it was not a perfect film, but lots of well done scenes. And
the acting I thought was great.
Exactly.
The main girl was amazing.
I agree.
And the mom character was amazing. Of course, she was also in that the what is it, Of Water by
I know,
nominated for awards. The Color of Water.
I wasn't expecting it.
Something like that. But,
she's an Australian actress, really acclaimed, I guess. She gave an impressive, really disturbing performance. Yeah, that's by those brothers that did
that Talk to Me.
Talk to Me.
I love Talk to Me. This one was good. My sons went with me. One son come out, said loved it. The other son goes, it was just too gross for me. Because it does have a little like body horror stuff in it. So
Oh yeah.
And I'm in the middle of the road. I enjoyed it. I thought, wow, it's a neat story. As a horror point of view, would I see it again and again? I look at movies that way. Would I watch them, 5 times, 10 times in a row? And probably not. But I also haven't seen Talk to Me since I've seen it, and I loved it. So, but it's interesting. It's a good watch. But I was trying to think. There was something else I saw recently, but I can't remember what they are. Stephen King said there's never been a bad horror movie, because he says
there's never been a bad horror movie. He said?
No, because he says you get what you get. Like with a horror movie, it's the only thing that it has to promise is horror to him.
Right.
Now there's good movies and bad movies, but a horror movie, and I kind of see his point. I will not. It's hard for me to watch a bad comedy or a bad science fiction movie, and stuff like that, or really not even B level, but even lower. But horror movies are something different. I could watch a really, really bad horror movie and still get something out of it. I don't know why. It's just,
I mostly can. If there's even a thrilling scene, I'm like, cool, I got what I paid for in there.
Right.
I think that the biggest offense, and I mean, it applies to every movie, but I think a little more so for horror, is being boring.
Yes.
I'll even see stuff that's repetitious and stuff. I'm seeing I'll go see Saw 7, 8, 9, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll have fun with that. But if you're boring, that's it for me.
I saw that reminded me. I saw Final Destination, the latest one, about a week or so ago, and
it wasn't bad, right?
No, the tension. That's what I'm saying. When you said a boring horror movie, horror movies need to have that suspense and tension throughout, and that one did, man. I left there thinking like I worked for about an hour and a half, because it's just it puts you through something. You're thinking, oh man, they're walking into that house. This is going to get them now, or this is going to get them. And
the only thing that bothers me about Final Destination movies is that there's no sort of real antagonist, and like it's just death. And I'm like, well, ultimately death gets us all. It's just that they're like trying to avoid violent deaths, but they all fail.
And there's I was trying to tell my kids, I said, there's this new trope in horror that happened around The Ring when that came out, where they solve it. In the final act, they'll solve the mystery, and you think everything's good, and then no, it still happens. And they do that in Final Destination. They'll do it in Ring. They've done it in so many movies now where you think, it's a good ending, and then all of a sudden they get you in the end. Which Carrie kind of did that.
Except it was a sort of a fake out like final scare, right? And I don't mind a final like surprise.
Right.
That one actually, like, I'm very jaded for horror, Mark, but I will say that like I didn't see Carrie when I was like young. I saw it like, in my early 20s or something. I'd seen some horror. Too. And that final like scene did surprise the hell out of me. I jumped and I haven't jumped in a long time since.
And I saw that after Friday the 13th. When I was, because growing up, I probably saw those in my teens, and on VHS or something. So those, because the Carrie came first, and they were like, hey, let's do the same jump scare at the end with Friday the 13th. And so that's kind of a neat little trope that they did back then. But I like that. I like that, like, here, something's about to happen. And, they get you one more time.
So for folks that may not quite know what I'm getting at, it's like that Mark has a successful cottage industry to himself. And let me see if I've got the timeline on this right, Mark. Okay. I know you had like done a lot of work in trading card art and concept art, and you eventually did Monsters as a trading card set.
Yep.
Crowdfunded, right?
Crowdfunded. It crowdfunded in 20, came out in 21. Yep.
Right. So that went well, and now you're doing it as a comic book, writing and doing the art.
Yep.
And then you did a new trading card set, which we can talk about in a little bit. But to jump back to Monsters, we should let folks know, like, if you haven't read it, what's sort of the elevator pitch for Monsters? Like, I know it, but not everybody watching maybe.
Right. It's basically it's set in the 80s, most of it. When I have flashbacks, it goes back even further. But I basically, it was everything that I liked as a kid of the 80s. Okay. And I put it in a big melting pot and mixed it together and came up with this. It's like almost like a love letter to everything I loved as a child. So you'll get Goonies out of it. You'll get Stand By Me. You'll get Monster Squad. You'll get Fright Night. You'll get Masters of the Universe. You'll get G.I. Joe. You'll get even superheroes. You'll get $6 Million Man. You get all these things that I just loved and thought, oh man, what if I do this and this? So it's but basically the main story is about a monster slayer. That's what he's called, is Monster Slayer. A lot of people call him Slayer. And this ancient vampire has come back from the dead that he thought he trapped about 100 years ago. Right. And that's basically lays the groundwork for everything. And there's like a MacGuffin that they're looking for, where it was there's this ring that's hidden away that the vampire wants really, really bad. And all that is discussed in the series as it goes along. You'll find out their motivations of, why does he want the ring? Is this Monster Slayer the same Monster Slayer from 100 years ago? If so, how is he alive still? And all those little mysteries and stuff are fun to reveal along the way. So
do you find it easy to pull horror out of sort of like fictional monsters as compared to, our sort of basic fears of like, a creepy guy, like a real person, or just being lost in the woods? Do you find any, like, what do you find like works for horror with monsters?
I think that both of those can work really well. To me, a real person is scarier, right? Like if you see this weird man driving around the van giving out balloons, that's creepy. What is he doing? Then if you see some fantastical, like a werewolf or something like that, because you don't run across that every day. So, but I like to do a little bit of both of that. In monsters, I have clowns, I have, and I have real people. And basically the reason it was called monsters is I'm trying to play on the whole thing of who are the monsters really? Is it just because you're a werewolf? Are you a monster? Or is it some person who does these very bad deeds? Are they the real monsters?
Sure.
So, and I'm playing around with that concept a little bit. So, but yes, I think that's even more creepy. And I would, hopefully I'll be able to tell so many stories, even outside of monsters. And I would love to tackle stuff like that where, it's just a weird guy in the neighborhood. I think that's just terrifying as well.
I think it's interesting. You've had a lot of success in the last couple of years with a lot of variant covers, which is just like a big part of the industry right now. So a lot of people probably, if they think about you, they probably think of you as an artist first, but you are writing something here. Have you always written, or is it something that you were developing for a long time? Like, where'd that come from?
Right. No, I always liked to write, back in school. That was kind of more of a get into art was more of a process of basically, okay, I guess everybody's this way. When I was younger, I had these action figures and I'd lay in the floor for hours when I come home from school, make up my own stories with these action figures, right? Well, and then I did that for years. I loved it. But then I started trying to draw a little bit, and I was like, wait, I don't even have to have the action figure to make up these stories. I didn't, understand that. So then I would sit down and I would make my own little comic books of my own little characters. And then when I in school, middle school and stuff, I loved any kind of writing class that we had in English. And so I'd always wanted to do stuff like that. That was, put them together because, it's just, it was natural for me. But
that's so cool.
But yeah, in the way that all that happens with monsters and then doing that with the variant covers, a lot of people think of me because they will be like, oh, he did a Silverhawks cover or he did a DC cover and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing. And, when I talked to you a little bit before we got on, and I had back in 23, when I was doing pretty decent with the trading cards, right, with the monsters, I thought that's what I would be doing. I didn't know I'd ever go back into comics because I tried for years and I didn't do it. So I just got my confidence up because the cards did so well that I reached out, and Spawn decided we did that over there with Todd McFarlane, and all that went well.
That's so nice.
And it led to more work. But I remember telling my wife, I was like, wouldn't it be something if, because I knew I got to do the 4 Spawn covers all at one time in 23. They all came out in like March.
Okay.
I remember telling her, I said, wouldn't it be something if I could do 10 covers before I leave comics and have them on my wall? Wouldn't that be just awesome? And I got way more than 10 now.
I think that there's a perception sometimes when an artist or a writer starts getting popular in comics that they just have like come out of nowhere and hit it big with a big idea. But I mean, you were grinding as an artist for a good like 20 years or so.
I had my first work was in the Image, and I think came out in 2001 with Ultiman. Was it like Super Special or something like that? And I did a Kurt Swan kind of style that they wanted me to do inside of it. So I thought that would lead to bigger and better things, but it was a struggle after that. For a few years, I couldn't get anything, and then I finally got a job doing concept art for Marvel, and then for DC as well. for Batman, for statuettes and figurines and Batmobiles. So, but that basically let me get better at what I was doing. And like at that time, I didn't color anything digitally. Everything was markers, and so they had told me at that time in 2006, hey, Mark, you need to learn this. This is where the industry is going. You need to learn how to color digitally.
Yeah.
So then years later, I was doing, so I was on Marvel and DC's radar, but on the licensing side.
Right.
So I was doing after that, I got into doing sketch cards and regular base set cards and sports cards. I did hockey for a little bit. And that just got me better at my craft. And then, but I always loved monsters, and I always thought, oh man, wouldn't it be something to do a horror magazine cover like the famous Monsters of Filmland?
Absolutely.
Right? That was a dream. And I remember trying to get a job doing that around 15, sending out samples, and all of them were no, but one came back. It was Diabolique magazine, which they were publishing at that time. And they said yes. And I even remember saying I would do it for free. And they said, no, we're going to pay you. And I did 3 covers, I think. It was such an honor, though. I would walk into a Barnes & Noble, and there's my artwork sitting there, right?
That is cool.
Yeah. And so that the bad thing was I have good luck, then I have bad luck. They stopped wanting to do print after 3 issues because, things were changing. They moved to online.
Right.
But those 3 covers I did, all 3 got nominated for awards. And so, that was neat. And again, I think all these little steps have to happen to get me where I'm at.
Right.
And it's
nobody comes like fully formed out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all like built you to what you are now.
Exactly.
There's sort of 2 different jobs as an artist in comics. There's telling a story and there's selling a story. Like the telling of the story is the sequential stuff. That would be an example inside Monsters. But a lot of what you're doing right now is selling these comics because we see the cover on the racks.
Right.
So sort of following up on what you were talking about, do you feel that you like cracked any sort of a code when you were doing all this like concept work and trading card art in terms of like a composition or a style that people like?
I think maybe because I remember I was watching an interview with J. Scott Campbell, and he was talking about how everything's changed because I used to own a comic book store 20-something years ago. Back in 2000, I owned it for a couple of years. Before that, I managed it and then worked there. But I remember the shelves, what things look like. If they were eye catching, that's what actually sold the best, right?
Right.
Or your eyes just gravitated toward it. And Campbell said something that was very interesting. I heard that he said that today's world is totally different, though. Most people buy a lot of things online. So your stuff needs to be eye-catching this big now, right?
Right.
Because of a phone is where you're doing your purchases mainly, a lot of people. And when he said that, I thought, that's interesting because that's about trading card size. And I'm so used to that, that form of drawing into that little space.
You can't clutter it up with too much like detail or background elements or anything like that, or foreground elements, because it's going to get lost at a certain size.
Exactly. And the same thing with concept art, when you're doing that stuff and you're sending it in and they're telling you, make these revisions, do this and that, they're doing the same thing. They're teaching you, hey, you don't need all this other, extra stuff. Because I was which still am a huge fan of like Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, all those guys from the Image era.
Sure. We grew up with them.
Yeah. And they would do a lot of just, I would say like, just line work in the background. Right. And that's what you want to emulate. But then I realized that's just cluttering up a lot of things, right? If you put in a lot of that extra stuff, especially people are looking at things from this small of an area.
Yeah.
So that might have something to do with the composition and stuff. Like I said, I've been doing it for, oh my gosh, almost I guess 25 years now. So it's
that's really cool.
Maybe. But also another thing that's really helped Chris was when I got in the industry, because so people are like, how can he do so many covers in such length of time? They don't realize a lot of these covers, especially exclusive covers and stuff, were my trading cards. Like here's a pack of the first series. Basically, like here I got some, right? Like here's a card. That'll be a cover probably one day. Now I did this, 2 years ago. So that was nice that I could pull things from 2020 and have a cover ready to go if I needed it. So I did a lot of that with exclusives. If it was a cover that was supposed to be in retail, I usually did it myself right then, or it was left over from the Kickstarter, things like that. But so the trading cards, really, I owe everything to the trading cards, the whole career.
I was about to move forward, but now you brought something interesting up. Like, what made you decide I'm going to try this as a crowdfunded thing? Like, what was like the impetus for that?
That it's kind of interesting. Okay, in 20, right before COVID hit, so this is about February. I couldn't get any work. The work was drying up that I was getting. Any kind of, I would try to get graphic art stuff on the side, anything that I could get. And I remember my sports stuff wasn't doing as well. It had done well, and I remember telling my wife, I said, "Look, I'm gonna have to give up. I'm gonna have to do something else." So my sister had told me to go into cybersecurity because there was a lot of jobs here in Huntsville that could do cybersecurity. So I remember I even got the book from Amazon and I started studying because there's a test you have to take. But I was miserable because this is, it's like, how close am I to the dream? But I didn't know how close really I was to actually achieving my dreams that I had, because I was just so much struggle going on. So I was really about to just change careers. COVID happens. My son wants to have a drawing contest, and he's around 15 at that time.
Okay.
And we're at home, and he draws something, and I say, okay, well, let me, win this contest real quick. So I did something, and it was just neat because at that time, almost everybody's home. So there's a lot of social interaction online at that time, right?
Right.
People are like, Mark, this is good and all this. And it was just, I think what I did at that time was horror icons, stuff that I didn't know. And it was just like Michael Myers. It was a big collage of the different characters because that's what my son had done. So basically I was just trying to trump him on it and make it a little bit better. But so that
kid.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm still your father.
Yeah. Hey, he's running me around the basketball court.
I was gonna say, that was where you could just show him up.
I'm show off a little bit.
I'm still the boss.
Yes, that's exactly it. And after that, I remember I started to. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should. I had been developing this stuff for years, the concepts of these monsters, and I just didn't ever know, what I would really do with it, but maybe prints or something. So I went ahead and I did a couple, like one a day during COVID. And I remember I started putting them on Facebook. I think I didn't even have an Instagram at that time. So I put them on Facebook and people started loving it. And the person who I had done a Marvel and DC license with, who used to work at Hasbro, wrote me and said, Mark, this is amazing. You've got to do something with this, though. Don't sit on this. This is too good. And I was like, well, what if I did trading cards? I know that how they do them. I said, it's just printing. And I said, but I didn't want to put my own money. I didn't have no money to put on it. But I was like, hey, there's that thing called Kickstarter, right? If I could get enough money to make the cards. So that I got up enough cards to around, let's say, I guess late summer is when the Kickstarter happened. Maybe it was closer to Halloween. And we did it for 30 days. It got 24,000, something like that. And that was like, I didn't know if that was good or bad. I think I needed 10,000 to do it. Yeah. And people were going crazy. Hey, man, that's great that you made all, that you did so good on that. Well, when the cards came out, and I was really particular, I was like, look, because the printer was like, Mark, if you do it this way that you're wanting to do it, it's going to eat at your cost. You don't need to do die cut stickers because people will, they'll like the regular stickers. And you don't do the 3D glasses in every box. That'll be expensive. And I said, nope, this is what I'm going to do, because I figured I would do it one time and I'll never get to do it again. So I wanted to do it just the best way I could. And it took off great. It was very limited. I think there was only 800 hobby boxes even made, and that was split four being the base set and another 400 being the retro ones. So, but after that came out, I got offered stuff from like what it was Nacelle, who did the toys that made me and the
toys that made us, right?
They wrote and was interested in licensing some of the characters, and
I know.
And then
like since then, like I've seen your art popped up in the Spirit Halloween movie.
Yes, exactly. That's like that led to that. And so all this happened before comics. So Spirit Halloween, the very next year, I do another one called Halloween Edition, and it was 2022. The director reaches out and says, "Hey, could we put these in the kids' room?"
I love it.
And then I'm like, of course you can. And then that led to them saying, hey, would you like to do the poster? Christopher Lloyd's in the movie. And I'm like, I'm getting to draw Christopher Lloyd for a movie poster. Again, that's why I say I owe so much to these trading cards.
I love hearing, Mark, that you like this. You know, like so many of us read comics, and for the most part, it's a fun, enjoyable experience, you know? So you want to think that the people making it are just as passionate, and it's really exciting to hear that.
I tell you, it's a dream come true. And I've gotten to a point now where all the jobs that I take on are ones I really want to do. And it's just so weird. I remember when Silverhawks was coming out, they announced they were going to do a Silverhawks Dynamite. And I wrote everybody I knew in comics asking, please, 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 I'll do it for free. I got to get on Silverhawks #1.
You got to stop saying you'll do stuff.
I know, I got to stop doing that. I got to make a living. But I couldn't get anywhere on it. No one. And then Thundercats had come out, and I wanted on that. I couldn't. It was just one cover. I just needed to scratch that itch to say, man, I did one. But it just so happens after Monsters came out, the comic, Nick Barucci over at Dynamite wrote me around October and said, hey, how about doing a Vampirella cover for me? And I was like, I've done one already as an exclusive. I said, I'm good. I said, but you got other characters over there. And he's like, really? And I said, well, give me a list of the characters you'd like. And I was like, well, Silverhawks, Thundercats. And I gave him a list.
The stuff we grew up with.
Yeah. And he wrote me back about a week later and said, let me look into this a little bit more. He called me on the phone. We talked it over, and he says, Mark, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to give you a cover to Silverhawks A and Thundercats A until you don't want to do them no more. And I was like, whoa, I get to do this as many times as I want. And
I love that Mum-Ra one. That one was fantastic.
There's a lot more I wanted to do. I never got to do Tigra, Chitara, and there's more characters I want to do, but I started doing, and I had to kind of leave Dynamite because of Spawn 77, doing that with Todd McFarlane.
Right.
And that's me writing, doing the artwork, plotting it, and then Todd's going to go in there and help me write it.
You can't say no to an opportunity like that. A Spawn book, come on. You know
right.
What I mean? That's
and I was like, I'm getting to create characters in the Spawn universe. That's the childhood dream. I mean, I remember buying Spawn off the rack. You couldn't wait. So.
But you've earned that by doing like the covers that were so well received for things like Spawn and stuff. You know, you proved yourself to guys like Todd. And I'm sure that, like, you know, when you can fit it in, there's a lot of people that would love your covers. I mean, we'll talk about some of that. I've already used a lot of your time, but I am curious about one thing. On your creator-owned book, Monsters, your publisher is KeenSpot, and I have to admit, I'm not overly familiar with them in terms of, like, it looks like they mostly did web comics for a long time.
Yeah.
How did you ever hook up with KeenSpot as the publisher?
Well, okay.
Somebody you knew?
Yeah, well, actually, it started out. I'll do a quick version of this, where after I got to know Todd McFarlane, I thought, okay, I'm going to pitch monsters to Image, and they gave me, the Image's head guy there. I wrote him, and
Eric,
he got turned down, and I was kind of shocked. I thought, oh, I loved it. So then I pitched it everywhere else. It got turned down. This was back in 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did so I kept working on it though, because at that time I had like one or two issues maybe. Kept working on it, got it up to 8 issues. Dark Horse was really interested in it, really interested. They even went to the meeting that they had when they do a project, but it got turned down. And then so everybody turned it down. I decided I gotta go back to crowdfunding. I might as well get this out there. I've already done it. Right. So we did it in 23 of December. I had it ready. I started doing test prints around April of 24. And the people I would let read it said, Mark, this is good. They shocked them a little bit. And I was like, I got to get this in a comic book store, even if I get nothing from it, right? Like if I do like a split or whatever, I just think more people need to see it because I put in so much time into it. So I started even advertising like on Instagram. Does anybody want this monster series? I'll send you all 8 issues.
Wow.
I don't want anything for it. Like, don't pay me for it. Just we'll do a split on it. And a couple of offers. A couple of people looked at it. They all passed. Anybody that had distribution with Diamond at that time. So they all passed. Teen Spot wrote. That's how I got to know them. Somebody had mentioned it to them, and I had no idea who they were. I did a Google search. I saw that they did parody comics at that time, like President Comics and stuff. And I'm like, it's a weird fit. I don't know if it'll do good over there. But I was like, I'm desperate. There's no one else. So I went ahead and I said, okay, let's do it. So we agreed in April of 24, and it got solicited to come out in September of 24. And but those guys, Chris Crosby over there is top notch, great guy.
That's great.
And I do think there's a lot of success goes to be contributed to them, because now we didn't have money for marketing. There was no money spent on anything, but as a grassroots
stuff like this, like where you have to like talk to
and
directly to the fans. And
luckily, it just things hit at the same time where my Lobo cover came out of Action Comics. I think it's 1066. It came out in June. That got me the first time I was on like a top 10 list where it was like, hey, this book is moving. People like it. Right after that, Spawn 355, 356 come out. And I'm on those covers. And then King Spawn comes out. And then a Green Lantern issue comes out, War Journal. So I'm in comic shops on the shelf at that time. So I think that helped with the order of number one. Comic store owners were like, oh, I know who this is.
Right.
We've already saw some of these covers. So it sold around 10,000 copies for the first issue, which, I didn't know if that was good or not, but Chris Crosby was like, hey, that's a hit. That's the most we've ever done for number one issue. Sure. And it went from there, man. It was.
I'm so happy for you. And, I think it shows us something that like we can all learn too, is like, I'm sure that there are the places like Image and Dark Horse could have easily considered this at a different time. They may have just felt like, you know what? We have too many horror books right now. Like, we don't want to be just known as just this. And so sometimes it's not the creator's fault, and you have to just see who else.
It's just not a good fit right then for that publisher, because like you're saying, they might have something else. Like I know Dark Horse at that time had Count Crowley they were doing, which was, a similar tone kind of thing. And Skybound just signed a deal right after that with or maybe even during that time for Universal. So there's a lot of things.
So, and it also, I think, shows like if there's anybody out there that's like looking to pitch their idea, maybe don't pitch your biggest, most beloved thing either, because you're at some points you're trying to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And like, then you get the opportunities to do more and more.
Then you
but
can, yeah. And I pitched, now I pitched even after Monsters was turned down and I still had it to do Kickstarter with. I pitched probably 5 or 6 other stories to Dark Horse and Image and stuff like that. Because that was my goal, was to have a comic where I could do a monthly comic. Because that's what I always want to do, is tell stories. And I was like, hey, if I can do that, then maybe I can do a Spawn, like Spawn 77 or a one shot over at Boom. I had even talked to them about doing maybe a Power Rangers at one time, one shot. So, but that's what, it again, if you're trying to pitch something, you can't take it personally. It can be just not a good fit at that time.
Exactly. It might not be you.
Exactly.
We should plug some of your stuff, because when we're talking about Monsters, folks, Mark is already up to issue 5 out of 8 there.
Comes out Wednesday. Number 5 comes out Wednesday,
folks. And let's see. So you've got that. I know that you're doing sort of a cover crossover with Vampirella and Monsters, right?
Yep. In July, they're letting me put Vampirella on one of my covers, and then some of my core monsters, like the Monster Squad guys, over on a Vampirella. I think it's Vampirella Armageddon #1.
Yeah, by Tom Sniegoski.
Yep. I even have my werewolf holding some dynamite. 1 for it being Dynamite, 2 for Monster Squad.
Monster Squad.
Yes,
I get it.
Right.
I think that's a great reference.
Yeah. So the covers are connecting, kind of. They have the same kind of background. And for July, I did all my covers kind of in a green tone. So it'd be kind of cool to, if you're a big Monster fan, you don't really buy Vampirella, you might want to go there and grab that one. If you're a Vampirella fan, not ever tried Monsters, you might want to come over there and get the Vampirella book. So Nick was the best person to do. It was his idea to do this. He's a great guy. Didn't charge me a penny, not a penny, to use Vampirella on my book. And I was just like, wow, what an honor. Because
I think it's a cool idea. I've never really heard exactly of a cover crossover.
Right. And he said, hey, let's do that. I think, he suggested one night. He goes, Mark, let's do that. Let's just do a cross promotion. I was like, oh, how much is that going to be? And it's like, no, free. And it just great. He's a great guy. Love him to death.
Well, and I also, just so you know, like, and my viewers know, I've put a link in the description below with a link to Mark's most recent trading card set, Monsters Halloween Edition 26. While the project technically ended on the 30th, Kickstarter now has this whole thing you can do with late pledges. So you could still buy in on a fully funded project.
And those, real quick, the trading cards. So what's neat about this one than different in the past, it does have some original art in there, but I also took all the covers that I've done for Monsters that have ever been released as an exclusive or incentive or whatever, and they're on the cards. So if you're a big comic collector of the Monsters, now you can collect all the little cards. So you can have the card and the cover yourself.
And real quick, how many variants did you end up doing so far for just issue 1? Do you have an idea how many variants you've done?
Well, okay, I'll tell you this. For the cards, I had to do a count. So from 1 through 6, which a lot of people haven't seen all of 6 yet. And 6, this was just up to 6, where not exclusives for 6 or anything. And there was 140 covers. And I'm like,
sorry, but that is pretty bonkers.
Well,
but that includes reprints, and it includes exclusives, stores,
the reprints, the exclusives, the incentives. And what's really funny, Chris, is I remember when I had the Kickstarter first up, where no one could see it, there was one cover for Monsters, right? For each issue to have one cover. And my wife come in there and was looking at it. She goes, "You only got one cover?" And I said, "I don't like variant covers." And she goes, "But Mark, people pay you money to do a cover. Why wouldn't you do extra covers for those?" And I was like, that does make sense. Okay, maybe I'll do a few more. And it turned out to be, there's probably 10 covers for every book. And then, of course,
that averages out to more like 20.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll just help you with the math.
5th printing of #1 now. which was interesting. The 5th printing of #1 sold 20,000 copies when the first issue only got 10. So that was really cool. Little landmark.
That is cool. You know what that reminds me of, though? Like when I was just getting into comics, something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, super low first print run, goes up, 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 and then there's still demand, so it goes down. But they got up to like 5 or 6 print runs for the first issue. So pretty cool.
Dude, I got to real quick. I got to meet Kevin Eastman at the con that I was just at.
That's
and
awesome.
I didn't want to say I'm a guy who doesn't. I don't like to talk much, surprisingly, but in person, I didn't want to say like, "Hey, I'm Mark Spears" or anything. So I just went up there. I paid the person for his autograph thing, and I went up there. And I didn't say nothing to him, but his people must have told him who I was, because all of a sudden he stops and goes, "Who's this? Blankety blank Mark Spears that I've been hearing about?" It just made me cackle. And my kids were with me. They're
nice.
They're late teens and in the early 20s. And he was so sweet to them. He goes, "Let's get some photographs." He took pictures with them, drew me a zombie turtle on a Monsters #1, and one of the bestest guys ever.
I've had the privilege of meeting him once. He was very much, like a sweetheart. I love that he's still actually working on his creation. So
that's awesome.
Like, you know what? Hopefully something similar with you and Monsters for all we know.
I would love it.
Dude, I've got tons more questions I could ask, but I also have a lot more show, and it's later where you are. I should let you go. Is there anything else you want to plug before we wrap things up, Mark?
No, that's about it. We've like I said, Monster and the Wolf will be coming out in retail this fall, probably around October. So that's a little prequel mini series. It'll be 3 issues. So I got that in the works too. Some DC covers coming down. Y'all haven't seen yet. I got to do DC. Let me do whatever I wanted over there. I told him, I said, "Look, I want to do some covers, but I want to do Silver Age covers, like a Silver Age Sinestro, a Silver Age Lex Luthor."
That could be fun.
And they said, "Go for it." And so I've had so much fun. I've turned in probably 10 of those. So you'll be seeing those later this year. So just keep your eyes out. But Chris, I've had so much fun. Anytime you ever need me back on, just let me know. Love to talk comics, and we can talk about me all you want to. I know about me, so we can talk about that anytime.
We could talk about you. We could talk about horror. Blast, Mark. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for giving us a bunch of your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's been a blast. See you guys later.
Mark deserves the double salute, right? Not just a left or a right. He gets the double salute. Man, I had other questions, but I'm getting to a point where if I ask somebody a question, I'm doing my best to just let them give their answer, and I'll take it from there. Mark gave us a lot of information. Monsters is a blast. Monsters is really, really fun, folks. If you like anything from Universal horror monsters to Hammer, the more gory stuff from the 60s and 70s in England, or even something a little more lighthearted like Monster Squad, it kind of blends all of that into this new thing and gives it a new mythology. I think you'll like it. I really do. Thank you all for being so polite and kind and everything. I think from here it makes sense to get on with the news as the next step, right? Tell you what, time for a new segment.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
Yep. I spent a little while making a silly little segment bumper there. So, all right. We've got some big news this week. And we'll get to it. Obviously hinting at it with the thumbnail. But first up, we've got Artgerm telling AI 2 thumbs down. I like it. That's what I want to see. All right, let me just rearrange my screen here a little so that I can see this a little better, and I'll give you some details. So first of all, this happened at, not this past weekend, because today's Monday, the weekend before that, MCM Comic-Con. That's in London, England. And Stanley Artgerm Lau was on a panel. He spoke out against AI imagery. Thank you. Thank you. Here are some quotes from him that I thought were cool. I think it's very important to understand that art is an exclusively human endeavor. That's how we record our journey and our experience. Yes, I totally agree. I can tell any of you who collect my covers, do you want to buy an AI cover or do you want a cover that is by Artgerm? It is obvious, right? Because we go through so many obstacles to get where we are. That's why the artwork has value. I hope that you don't give up. Never give in. Myself, I will never give in to AI. I will die on the hill of human art. Very well said. Not just a statement, but like telling us something true. Art is how we talk about the human experience, and that connects us, whether it's scary or funny or cool or thrilling, whatever it is. Art is how we connect to each other. And I think AI has value in some things. If you want to use it to like summarize a lot of data, or, you know, go through a list of people's symptoms and give a suggestion to the doctor of like the top 3 things that it could be, including something really rare that a human might not easily think of, that's a great use of AI. Don't get me wrong. But for artwork, no, not a fan. And I really like Stanley's comments, so I thought I'd just share it. But there's more stuff, so I'm going to keep on going. What else do I have? Marvel is going to skip Hall H this year. I just realized I still had in my earbud from the interview. I'm going to take that out. I feel like balanced, like I can hear everything better. The only Al I support is Al Milgrom. That's pretty good. All right. Marvel skipping Hall H. So Marvel said that they're not going to have a panel at San Diego Comic-Con's Hall H. That's the biggest panel room, and typically where a bunch of Hollywood-type announcements take place, or at least really big comic book news. It's the biggest venue. It's where we get our announcements like, Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom or Mahershala Ali as Blade. As you can see, that doesn't always go somewhere. Hey, bud. You don't want to show up on the channel? Don't jump. Here's Jack. Can you see him? I can't tell. Let's see. I got a kitty right behind me being a rascal. He's not that bad. What did I want to say about Hall H? Just that, to be clear, there are a bunch of years that Marvel hasn't had a panel at Hall H. So I have seen some websites going like, oh, they must not be confident about, Fantastic Four and Avengers. And I'm like, not necessarily. They just don't go every year, to be honest. So Avengers Doomsday is currently filming in London. And so it probably just doesn't make a lot of sense to fly out a dozen people where you're trying to like coordinate all those schedules. The Fantastic Four First Steps is going to be represented at the con with a booth, and the stars are going to appear at CCXP in Mexico, which was it last weekend? Oh, it might have been last weekend now that I think of it. If it isn't, it's this coming weekend. CCXP is a humongous convention down in Sao Paulo, Brazil in December. And I guess they're sort of trying to make it like a twice-a-year event in like the more Latin countries. So they're going to add it to Mexico. Oh, it was this past Saturday and Sunday. It just popped into my head that I was like off by a week. Yeah. So maybe I'll have some more news about Fantastic Four next weekend. There's a tiger in the background. That was Jack just disturbing me? No, just distracting me. And Lily's here too. But they've got a kitty condo over there, so hopefully they can keep themselves entertained. What else do we have for good news? The Vision has cast some actors. Talk about that real quick. So, Tania Millar, she's on a show right now, but I haven't seen it. It's on Apple. I'm trying to remember all the weird shows that are on Apple. I can't think of it. But anyway, she was cast in the Vision Quest TV show as Jocasta. And that's the female robot in the comics that Ultron creates to be his bride. He actually bases her brainwaves on the Wasp, just like he had his... he created Vision to have the brainwave patterns of Wonder Man. Yeah. Anyway, she ends up joining the Avengers, though. This one was weird. Farhan Tahir is going to return to the MCU. He goes all the way back to the first MCU movie, Iron Man. He was Raza, first leader of the 10 Rings. So, yeah, Raza is coming back. Everybody wanted Raza, right? Who knows? Maybe without Shang-Chi's dad around, Raza stepped up or something. But I thought Shang-Chi's sister took over the 10 Rings. Who knows? Maybe he got a new job. Maybe he got a new job as just like an Uber driver for all we know. We saw him get sort of poisoned by Obadiah Stane, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he died. We didn't see him expire and his soul fly out. And who knows? I would love to see Sam Rockwell come back. That would be great. What else? The show is also going to feature Todd Stashwick as an assassin. That's only interesting because he played Captain Shaw on Picard Season 3, which is by the same showrunner, Terry Matalas. I thought Picard Season 3 was fantastic. Seasons 1 and 2, pretty bad. Season 3, all of a sudden out of nowhere, just does its own thing. Fantastic. So I'm excited to see what Terry Matalas does with the MCU because he did a great job on Picard. And then, of course, Paul Bettany and James Spader are returning as Vision and Ultron. Do you think that we'll get more of their robot creations? What was it? Alchema? I can't remember what her name was, but Ultron tried to create another bride at some point. Sam Rockwell wasn't on the Avengers. He was the villain or one of the villains in Iron Man 2. He played, let's see. There's Obadiah Stane, and who's the other guy that's the industrialist? Justin Hammer. He was fun. Yeah, Todd Stashwick was really good on the No One podcast. He was so good. Alchema? I don't know how it's pronounced. She's an interesting character. Moving on. Dark Horse is going to celebrate Jack Kirby. This is a Dark Horse book, actually. I know what it looks like. Dark Horse has this imprint called Bullpen Books. They just did a John Romita Sr. book. Now they're doing a second collaboration with Marvel. They're going to release a 10-inch by 14-inch hardcover Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four art. Specifically, this book is going to be sort of like an artist edition, the big things with the regular size art boards reproduced. It's going to have essays and commentary, and it's going to include complete stories from certain issues of Fantastic Four that I guess the original art still exists for. Keep in mind, there's huge gaps. Marvel used to give this stuff out like it was, a mint as you were leaving the restaurant. They'd just be anyone would be visiting and they'd just be here, have some Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby art to go. Thanks for the super chat, Steve. Happy Pride Month, everyone. I can echo that sentiment. That's really positive. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Issues 60, 71, 82, and 83. That's cool. They're consecutive there. And Avengers Annual number 6. I sort of wish that the cover was more the art of Jack Kirby instead of like emphasizing the Fantastic Four. But, you know, it's licensed, so I guess there's not much of a choice. What's Marvel doing to celebrate Jack Kirby? I don't know. I don't know. I love the super chats. That's how I am able to get my food and drink. It keeps a roof over my cat's heads and me. Let's see. Yeah, it's expensive, but it is cool. This comes out September 23rd for $59.99. But you know, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different issues, big issues, huge archival scan, I don't know. It seems like a reasonable enough price. Let's talk about some more hardcover stuff. Helen of Wyndhorn, also Dark Horse. That's going to get a deluxe treatment. I told you guys this was one of my favorite comics, top 10 of the last year. Great book. Hope it wins a bunch of Eisners. Dark Horse announced a hardcover collecting all 6 issues of the Eisner-nominated series by Tom King, Bilquis Evely, Mateus Lopez. Great coloring. The story, if you didn't read it, I'll just like a 1-sentence condensation, which doesn't do it justice. But Helen Cole is forced to live with her grandfather after her pulp fiction writing father passes away. And then she learns that her grandfather is the basis for her father's stories. He's basically Conan the Barbarian. He goes to this fantasy world. He's just like, yeah, a manly man. And it's a crazy story. Love it, love it, love it. That is just the start of the story. Hey, another super chat. June is also Men's Mental Health Month. Raise awareness, break stigma, encourage men to seek support for emotional well-being and mental health. Yeah, that's true. Gets overlooked. Gets overlooked. Thank you very much for the support, Steve. You're basically supporting the show solo these days. I appreciate you. So this collects all 6 issues. It's also going to have a sketchbook section, and this is kind of cool. Bonus art by Walt Simonson, Greg Smallwood, Clay Mann, Elsa Charretier, Tula Late, Massimo Carnival, Fabio Moon, Jill Thompson. What a murderer's row of talent. I want to see some other people interpret Helen and her grandfather and that whole world. I love it. I love it. This is a book I'm interested in. So that one doesn't come out until February 24th. It's going to come out hardcover, slipcase, bookmark ribbon, $59.99. For 6 issues, not bad. Another Dark Horse hardcover. These are all things that are just testing my wallet. But Shaolin Cowboy, a huge compilation here. I'm a big Geof Darrow fan, if you didn't know. Big, big fan. Oh, I like that. Sorry. As Tom King said it best, it's Wuthering Heights meets Conan the Barbarian. What a fascinating premise for a book. That's a great way to summarize it. 9880 is a crisis line 24/7 for all. You are not alone. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice, Steve. Thanks for being such a positive force. Dark Horse making up for losing Aliens. They lost that a while ago. It's been a while. Let's see what this has. So, it's Geof Darrow's action comedy series. It's going to be collected into a hardcover. Comes out December 9th. It's called Shaolin Cowboy, Beginning of the End Results. 21 years of blood, sweat, and chainsaws. Why not a 20th anniversary? Why a 21st anniversary? I can only assume that is Geof Darrow having a sense of humor, deciding that the time was right and throwing it up. I don't think we've ever gotten a 21st anniversary anything before. I love it. Wow, thank you, Pasta Jensen. I try again. Get some snacks for your cat. I will. Love your trope show. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Thank you very much for the support. That means a lot. This is what's cool about this, folks. Sure, there have been all these like Dark Horse versions of Shaolin Cowboy. There were the issues originally published by the Wachowskis. But this is going all the way back to the beginning. It's going to include the stories Star Trek and Bourbon Threat from Comics and Stories, originally published in France by Mobius's publishing house Adena. That's cool. That has not been easy stuff to find. Certainly not in English. Certainly not in English. Wasn't original Shaolin Cowboy a comic off of the Matrix line? Not quite, actually. It did predate the Matrix by quite a bit. Yeah, it was originally some shorter comics, short, like 6 to 8 pages. As I said, it was in Comics and Stories, and then it was published in Metal Hurlant, the original heavy metal magazine. I don't know if it was ever published in Heavy Metal. It probably was, to be honest. It probably was. Yeah, the cat's going crazy. Cat's going crazy. Yeah, I don't blame you. Shaolin Cowboy can legally drink. That's nice to think about. There were some short stories that Darrow did in Dark Horse Presents. I don't remember off the top of my head if these were any of them, because they were in black and white in Dark Horse Presents. But I think he may have had some other short stories with the Shaolin Cowboy character. I'll have to take a look. Jack, come on, buddy. Okay, tell you what, I got to take a minute and see if my wife will feed him, because he's going crazy. All right, maybe I'll get some help by my better half. We'll see. Sorry, I've gotten used to it, that he's just a loudmouth. His sister doesn't meow so much, but Jack just loves to talk. He just loves talking. All right, what else? So we were talking about hardcovers, big, thick hardcovers. Now I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go to compact editions. So, whoops, this came out in a weird order. All 34 issues of the role-playing game-inspired series Skullkickers are going to be released in new compact editions through Oni. This was originally published back in 2010 through Image. It's by Jim Zub, friend of the show, artist Edwin Wong. Jack should host his own YouTube show. You're probably right. You're probably right. I had to pause and feed my cats too. I thought it was my cat. There we go. The obvious solution is interview Jack. Jack was shouting. Jack was shouting. 3 volumes. They're sized at 5.5 by 8.5 inches. So these are definitely, manga-sized volumes. I think it's a good idea for this. Based on the art style and the subject matter, I think that this could work quite well manga-sized. It's going to come out in February, March, and April, 1 volume each of 2026. And I guess that's it. That's it. Let's see. A super chat. Side tangent. Didn't you lose your cat a few months back? How did you find Jack? I lost my cat now like 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, because Jack and Lily are brother and sister, and they're coming up on 3 years old. And yeah. So it's been a while, actually. Thank you for caring. They definitely keep our lives entertaining. They're funny. They're annoying here and there, but honestly, that's also kind of funny. So Jack speaks for everyone. I do get a lot of comments in my videos that just say meow with an exclamation point. What's that mean? I think they meant when Lily was hiding. Oh! Right. Okay. No. So back in October, when I was going to New York Comic-Con, we thought Lily escaped outside, and we spent hours at night looking for her, only to find, like, my wife stayed home, actually. She also wasn't feeling too good. She calls me by the time I land. Lily was just hiding in the laundry room for some reason. So, yeah. That's what it was. I think that this is a good idea. DC's compact comics seem to be selling very well. Every store that I go to that carries them seems to sell out, especially if they put them in their own section. Like if you mix it in with all the graphic novels, it can get overlooked. But if you have sort of like a compact comic section or have it near the manga, sells right out because it's a good value. Marvel's doing some now. Image is doing it with Saga, and I think pretty soon Invincible. So Oni doing Skullkickers makes a lot of sense to me. Mark Millar launched a new title. This is a little funny to me because he had been definitely teasing and hyping this up. He's good at marketing. And he was just like, oh, I've got some news this week that's going to like blow everyone's minds. And everyone's going like, oh, he's probably working on one of the Marvel DC crossover books. He announces it in the morning. And later that day, Marvel and DC had their news of a crossover. It didn't involve Mark. So it's just a little funny because he built up all this hype and he sort of got steamrolled by some other news. But it is still news, and I want to talk about it. I don't know. He's trolling. I don't know if he is a troll. Yes, exactly. He wanted everyone to think it was a crossover book just to pay attention. So what is it, though? The Kick-Ass team, Mark Millar, John Romita Jr., they just launched a Kickstarter for Volume 1 of a planned 3-volume series called Psychic Sam. This guy that sort of looks like the Punisher is Sam, and he's psychic. Millar has a quote about it, what it is. It's about a guy with a big gun who goes out and solves problems. It's an interesting way of saying that. Do you really solve problems with a gun? Do you really? I don't know. You end things. Millar continues. He hears voices in his head that tell him to kill bad guys. The only trouble is the bad guys haven't done anything yet. But every time he ignores it, someone innocent dies. It's only a matter of time before the bodies pile up. This is interesting to note. It is not part of Millar World. That's the imprint that he sold to Netflix. So Netflix has the rights to, get a profit on the comics and first right of refusal for adapting anything. But I guess he had a carve out where he could still do some of his own stuff. So, yeah, he's doing this as a Kickstarter. And I have links for all the Kickstarters I'm mentioning today in the description below. So I have that one in there too. I like the first Kick-Ass series. I didn't like the sequels too much, but I did like the first one, to be honest. It was fair. It was fun. Yeah, that's an interesting way of summarizing it. But yeah, Minority Report meets Death Wish. That's a fair way of doing it. He hasn't given a reason, but it's probably honestly one of the easiest ways to do it if he's trying to fit his other obligations, because this will just tell them this is how many copies you need to print. This is who wants it, fulfill it, as compared to, when you've got it through a publisher, you're going to have to solicit it to stores, get their orders, sort of estimate if that's the right amount to print. Like, honestly, I'm okay with big names using crowdfunding tools. It's efficient. It cuts out a middleman, so sometimes the prices are a little better. It's usually a little bit faster. It's up to you how much you trust them to fulfill everything, but I get why they would use it as a tool. Hello. Yeah, Netflix owns Millar World. They did one thing with it. They adapted what is it? Jupiter. It's not Jupiter Rising. That was the Wachowski movie. What was it called? Like Jupiter's Legacy or something like that. They did one season of it, but honestly, it sort of had a CW budget vibe to it. It didn't do so great. Yeah. So, hello. Welcome to the show. What else? As long as I'm talking about crowdfunded stuff, let me just take a quick moment to shout out a few that are interesting to me if I've got this platform, I'm just going to use it here and there to do stuff like this. So first of all, Inkpulp host Shawn Crystal, he has launched Cyan, and that's an art book that doesn't just have his art. It includes his process. So up here in the top left corner, it'll have like his sketches, his blue line, his more refined drawing, and his inks. Sometimes his colors, and he talks about the process. So it's both an art book if you like his art, but it's also a bit of a manual, like to say like, hey, these are the tools that are used, or this is the process, a way of making art. And I think that that's a really cool way to do an art book. So I've actually backed that one already. I'm pretty excited. I think it's a cool idea for a way to do an art book. So what else? The Long Beach Ink and Drink guys, they've done an X-Men remix. It's called Sewer Boys 2, where they take the premise of giant size X-Men, but then anyone can take a page and remix it however they want. Just draw it in their style. Change the story a little, change the layout, whatever they want to do. So that's a cool sort of jam book with a lot of talented artists. That's another one that I backed recently. I think that's a cool idea. They had sent me their first one, Sewer Boys, and it was called that because the first one remixed TMNT #1. Very cool book. Wait, Netflix also adapted Super Crooks and American Jesus? That totally went over my head. I had no idea. Yeah, Frank Quitely on the Jupiter comic, and he always makes everything look amazing. Anyway, last one I wanted to mention was these Disney Villains hardcovers. This was a bit of a hit for Dynamite. They did like books focused on the villains, and we had Elliot Kalin on the show. He wrote the Hercules one. He wrote this Hades book. Very funny. Sue Lee, popular artist and writer. She worked on one. So anyway, there's the link for that. Shawn Crystal and Sewer Boys, going to be pure gold, people. This guy might be biased. He's a known friend to Shawn Crystal, known co-host on Inkpulp. And if you look closely, folks, in the top left corner of this pastiche of Sewer Boys 2 art, that looks like suspiciously like the art of one Jimmy Jams. No, glad I could mention those things. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about, for comics, this is pretty big news. I expect this to sell exceedingly well. It's a crossover. It's a crossover between the two biggest publishers. It's two of the most popular characters out there, and the talent that they've got is absolutely top tier. There's one or two that may be like controversial or not everybody's favorite, but for the most part, these are people that like really bring in readers. So I expect this to sell quite well. We shall see, but I've got some details. I have my alliances. I know some people. You're the best, Jim. Jim and I are going to finally get around to recording another trash movie bonanza tomorrow. So got one coming up for you folks. Just had a busy month and a lot of like physical problems. My shoulder is still in agony. I'll just let you know. But let's talk about Batman, Deadpool, and Batman, and DC, and Marvel. So what do we got? Marvel and DC officially announced this week the first of their crossovers. First they've done since 2003. That was the JLA Avengers book, which is honestly like one of their all-time best crossovers. I don't think it's what necessarily anybody was expecting. I thought we'd see, more of an Avengers Justice League or, an X-Men and Teen Titans type thing, like a bunch of characters but it does make a certain amount of sense from a business perspective, doesn't it? Batman, I don't think anybody's going to blink. Deadpool, I think you pause and you go like, wait, Deadpool? But then again, Deadpool's very popular. So we'll see. Marvel is going to publish this one, Deadpool Batman. That comes out September 17th, written by Zeb Wells, art by Greg Capullo. one of the best known Batman artists in the last couple decades, I think you could argue. Yeah, I also thought that there was a chance for a Superman Fantastic Four, which they did do once. And in fact, I'll just pause here to say, I always do one dedicated video for just my Patreon supporters at the $2 and above tiers. For just $2 a month, you get to vote and you get to see an episode that I don't release to the public. And this month, I gave for a theme crossovers. And one of the options was the Fantastic Four Superman crossover. I think that's the one that's currently leading. I'll have to double check. But I just, a plug for my Patreon. It's on Patreon. It's just Comic Tropes. So just want you to know. But anyway, yeah, I think business-wise, this makes sense so far. Here's the one I'm a little more excited about, the second one. Oh, but I should say, the Marvel one, they said will also have some backup crossover stories. Who's working on that? Which characters? Unknown. Mystery. But I like to be teased, so that's cool with me. You're personally sick of Deadpool? Most people are not. I'll just say that. People on the internet act like Zeb Wells never wrote anything good. He's made lots of good comics. He's super funny. I know, and honestly, people were annoyed at several things that he did on Spider-Man, but I'm old enough at this point that I've realized most Spider-Man runs have something very controversial at a certain point. Like you'd be hard pressed. And then what happens is they get retroactively, the people that really dislike it, they move on, they forget about it. And then the people that are nostalgic for it, sort of do analysis videos and stuff. And so that's just a thing that happens with a lot of runs, but especially Spider-Man. Anyway, I like Zeb Wells' story. You know, I remember going to a Wizard World Chicago back in maybe 2003 or maybe even earlier, but Zeb Wells used to make these comedy sketches with his friends as superheroes that would air before the awards ceremony on Saturday nights. And then he got work, I think, working on maybe Robot Chicken or something like that before he started doing comics. You know, he was married to Heidi Gardner from SNL. He's had a lot of interesting success. Yeah, exactly. Deadpool has also never been used quite like this. You know, he's always sort of tangential to X-Men for any sort of event. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you, that would definitely be a way to make a lot of money. And you don't have to ruin your own continuity. You can just say this is a one-off or something. But Absolute versus Ultimate, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. I guess I've got a lot to say. What else? Let's talk about Batman Deadpool. DC publishes that one November. Grant Morrison and Dan Mora. The team from Boom Studios, Claus, right? Santa Claus. So Claus. I was about to say Klaus, like Klaus Kinski, but it's probably pronounced Claus. Dudes, sorry, but I'm down. I love Dan Mora. I'm pretty much never disappointed by Grant Morrison. Sometimes I might be mildly confused, but Grant Morrison, they're awesome. So, yeah, pencils down. I'm in. Hey, thank you for the support, Joe. I have been here for many years with Comic Tropes After Dark. It helped me a lot at a hard time. Thank you. Well, your support helps me, so thank you. We're helping each other. The Claus team reunited with another red-suited hero. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Before breaking the fourth wall was a thing, Grant Morrison was doing it to incredible effect in Animal Man. So, you know, the idea of him doing something again with Batman and doing something with Deadpool, breaking the fourth wall, Grant's going to do something interesting. He just is. Or they are, excuse me. It's sunny out. We need to move the show to 11 p.m. Pacific. You don't have to sit here and watch. You can watch it on the rewind. Go out and get some sun. You silly Billy. I think that's a cool. I think it's a cool idea. Are there other things I'd want to see out of a crossover? Yeah, there probably are. But you put this talent behind it, and I'm pretty interested in it. Let's see. Thank you for all the Super Boyz 2 shout-outs. How many Baja Busters can you drink with this money? It's Baja Blast. And a lot. If you go to Walmart, I think, diet soda is like 30 cents a can or something. Thank you. And good luck with the crowdfunding. Again, folks, the link for Sewer Boyz 2 is in the description below. Only a few days left on that one. But there might be a late pledge option. Let's see. Even though I personally have pretty much given up on Marvel and DC in general, if I were to come back, I'd rather see Spider-Man, Shazam, Captain Marvel, Wolverine, Green Arrow, and X-Men Doom Patrol. X-Men Doom Patrol I'm pretty into. Man, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. DC does have some characters you could argue are a little bit similar to Deadpool. I think Ambush Bug, I think to a degree Lobo. I think that those characters are kind of used to similar effect. Maybe, yeah, a little sillier or a little darker, but yeah. Or let's just take a look at the fact that this guy's name is Wade Wilson and he runs around with guns and swords, and we could easily throw Deathstroke in here, and I think that the comparison would be apt. If you took Deadpool's mask here and you just colored half of it black, you basically have Deathstroke. Same powers, the healing, maybe not quite the super soldier serum, but it basically. Oh yeah, you know what? Let me just pause because that's a great point. In the chat room is West Coast Davengers. He just uploaded an interview with. I'm stuttering tonight, guys. I'm sorry. He uploaded an interview he did with Stan Sakai, Usagi Yojimbo. Great interview. Stan really opens up about his life and his history. I never knew that his mother grew up in Nagasaki and was there when the bomb was dropped. I didn't know that. That was fascinating. I knew he'd lived in Hawaii, but hearing about how he got into art and stuff in a little bit more of an isolated area for it's hard for comics artists to foster themselves there. It's a really interesting interview. Really, really good. So I recommend it. All right, let's get back to the news. The news that you can use. I'm going slow tonight. All right, more crossovers are going to come, Marvel and DC said, in 2026. So this one comes in fall and beginning of winter, basically, but they are going to have more crossovers in 2026. It's a secret. It's a secret. A book publisher bought Vault Comics this week, essentially. Here. Sci-fi book publisher Aethon, not super familiar with them, but they purchased a majority share in the indie publisher Vault, the publisher of books like Barbaric and this one that you see here, Post Malone's Big Rig, art by Daniel Warren Johnson on the cover. Vault's leadership will remain in place, and Aethon's co-founders will join Vault's board of directors. Vault's founder told Forbes that this will allow Vault to have a larger marketing budget, publish in more categories, and have better access to resources overall. So if that's true, sounds like a good move for Vault. We'll see if that leads to them getting bigger. But a celebrity like Post Malone deciding to do his comic at Vault is definitely the kind of thing that makes people take a little bit more notice. I think Barbaric is a good book, legit. I think somebody's making a joke. Remember when Geraldo Rivera was like, we are going to open Al Capone's vault, which hasn't been opened, since he was alive. What kind of, interesting materials are we going to find out about, this huge crime boss? And he opened it up and it was empty, and he did it live. And it's like, yeah, of course it was empty, or the FBI would have already opened it. Nobody remembers that. Okay, thank you. I'm as long as even one person remembers what I'm talking about. He sort of started to kill his career at that point. It was full of 1940s air. Oh, man. Udon has halted all shipments to Diamond distribution. Ooh, Diamond just cannot catch a break, can they? Brunson, welcome. Let's see. So Udon announced that they were adding Lunar for distribution back in February. They also added Simon & Schuster back in April. So they have like 2 other vendors for distributing their comics. But now, this week, they announced that they're ending all shipments to Diamond. Ooh. Udon sent an email to comic shops explaining that they wouldn't be using Diamond anymore. Therefore, they're going to have a delay on one of their books, Mega Man Timelines. They said that they're also going to be doing an overprint to sort of correct for this like adjustment period. So everybody will get that. Interesting to note, Universal, they're a Canadian distributor of comics. They also just bought Diamond's Alliance Games distribution division. They this week, actually, I think literally today, hired several Diamond executives. Makes you wonder, could Universal be considering moving into distributing comics in the US market? They're also currently looking at potentially buying Diamond UK. That's been in a big question mark for a while, because Diamond UK is very successful, profitable distribution division, separate from Diamond's US stuff. But apparently Universal is looking at potentially buying that. Diamond Select is gone, my man. Ad Populum just absorbed all of their licenses and stuff and shut it down. Let's talk a little bit more about Diamond, and then we'll go on to some other fun stuff. Looks like Diamond owes Dynamite a lot. That's according to some court filings that were filed this week. So according to a motion filed by Dynamite on May 27th, so this is pretty darn recent, Diamond has not paid them for 3 months of invoices submitted on April, May, well, these 3 dates in April and May, totaling over $500,000, over $500,000 for 3 months of they haven't been paid. Yikes. The inventory can't be returned to Diamond because, the inventory can't be returned to Dynamite because Diamond has already shipped it to stores. They just haven't paid on it. They collected, I guess, but they didn't pay on it. Dynamite included a list of what they've shipped to Diamond this year, and the court document, it's 157 pages long. All the different, it's mostly comics, but there are some, other things in there. There's some books and merch. What? The documents filed in court, and I'm not a lawyer, so I could be misinterpreting this, but they seem to indicate that this is on top of the over $250,000 that Dynamite said Diamond owed them from January when they first filed the bankruptcy. Whoa. That means over $750,000. Just today, a place called Filbo Distribution sent out a press release that they are signing up new publishers, that they're looking to focus on the indie market. So they've already signed up some publishers like Zenoscope and Antarctic Press. Be very interesting. I could read it, and it does. Like I had to skim it because I'm not a lawyer. It's crazy. Let's see. I'm a little confused. I thought Diamond printed comics and distributed them. No, they don't print anything. They just distribute. So wouldn't a comic publisher like Dynamite be paying Diamond for this service? How does Diamond owe Dynamite? No. Okay, let's break it down. First of all, Diamond pays a printer to print the books. Sorry, I'm misspeaking because there's such similar names. Dynamite has the books printed. Diamond picks them up, takes them to this special warehouse, sends out this magazine to comic book stores, the direct market, with the solicitations. Hey, in a couple months, this book are for sale. Here's what it's about. Here's how much it costs. Stores say, great, I want to order 50 copies of this one, 125 of that one, 30 of this one. Okay, now Diamond allots that. Technically, I'm sort of skipping over something. They get the numbers, and then Dynamite tells the printer how many they want them to print. Okay, so there's sort of like an in-between period, but whatever. So then Diamond sells the inventory to the comic shops and owes Dynamite. But they're collecting from the comic stores, but they're not paying Dynamite, allegedly. Do you think Jeppy is going to start to face some personal lawsuits? I'm not clear on how involved he is anymore in Diamond. I'm not sure. Yeah, I ain't no fancy lawyer from the city, so my interpretation may not be 100%. Because Diamond is still operating. They've been bought by Ad Populum, but they're still operating. They're just not paying, apparently. Yes, Dynamite has already paid the printers and their freelancers and their staff, and they're counting on money to be coming in, but it seems like it's not coming in. So, a Norm Breyfogle biography. Here's something completely different. I was a big fan of Norm Breyfogle. He's well remembered for a run in the 80s and 90s on Batman in Detective Comics. Very cool, very stylized. I liked his art. He also co-created Prime for the Ultraverse. That was an imprint that Malibu did in the 90s. Everybody had a superhero imprint. Malibu got in on that. That will never be reprinted, basically, because the writer went to prison for, I don't even know what word to use that would be like acceptable on YouTube, but you can guess. He had some stuff on his computers that you shouldn't have. Look it up on your own. So anyway, so that stuff's never getting reprinted, but great art, really cool. I liked him. He sadly passed away at only age 58 back in 2018. I remember I came really close to pulling the trigger and doing a Norm Breyfogle episode, like right when that happened. And then I sort of decided that I didn't really want to jump right on top of stuff like that when it happened. It just felt a little ghoulish. I think that there's been like one creator that I did an episode about shortly after they passed, but it was because I had most of the work ready. Yeah, I think he's really, really cool. Breyfogle was my OG off the spinner rack Batman artist. Breyfogle was one of the best Batman artists of all time. Yep. I love Norm Breyfogle. Definitely my favorite Batman and covers done by him. My favorite Batman artist is probably Jim Aparo, but Norm Breyfogle is definitely like somebody that I absolutely love. Really, really loved. Anyway, let's talk about this biography thing that I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Trust me, I would still like to do an episode about him. Comics historian Daniel Best, he posted to his Substack this week that he and Norm had been working on a biography about Norm for years, but they never found the right publisher. They'd pitch it to a publisher. The publisher would say no thanks, or if somebody was interested, like, the deal wasn't right. So it was something that they did for a long time. And that's because I don't know whether it was 2014 or 2015, but Norm had a stroke that prevented him from drawing. So that's probably why he was willing to put some effort into like potentially making a biography about himself. Anyway, so a publisher never picked this up. And this week, Daniel Best announced that he's going to begin posting the chapters as well as photos and art that Norm provided while they were working on this together. He's going to post that to his paid Substack. And so I've got the link written there. Dan Best. Simple as that. Substack.com/Dan Best. Could be very interesting. Depends how big a fan you are of Norm Breyfogle, Batman, or comic book history. But you're going to get like chapters, kind of like Charles Dickens giving you a novella in every week of the newspaper. You could get like little chapters about Norm Breyfogle if you're a fan. Could be pretty cool. What is the context of the gun under Robin's cape? It's not a gun. That's his staff. At the time, that's Tim Drake. He had just become Robin, and he had mastered the staff. He was getting trained by Lady Shiva, and she was like, "You're short, you're small, you're not as strong as Batman. You need something with more reach and stuff like that." So he got a staff that could like fold into thirds, and he like had it on his back. So he'd pull that out and like uncollapse it, extendable like bow staff. So yeah. And that's actually like a this is an homage cover that Norm Breyfogle did. I can't remember. There were two artists that worked on it. One was Jerry Robinson, and I can't remember off the top of my head the other one, but it's a famous Golden Age cover. It might make a lot more sense if you were Batman and Robin. Yeah, you should probably just walk around with pepper spray and that would slow down just about anybody. It might not defeat, say, Bane, but it would at least slow him down. Robin was a card-carrying member of the NRA. Hey, Robin, I don't wear hockey pads, but I do need a sidekick that runs around with a gun. Oh, that's so cool. Well, apparently, before Alan Grant passed away, he had written a foreword for this book, and that will also be something that Daniel Best will include in these chapters. So there's also a profile, like a portrait, I should say, a portrait of Norm by a famous artist, and I cannot remember the name of the artist off the top of my head. But if you go to Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure that that's what they just added for Norm Breyfogle's image, because I don't think there's many photos out there of him. Anyway, really cool artist. Could be a really interesting story. There's going to be some new Ninja Turtles titles, allegedly. Bleeding Cool makes this claim. I haven't heard any confirmation from anyone, so take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but this is the kind of thing they usually get right. Anyway, they claim IDW is going to launch 2 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles books this October. One of them is called Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The other is called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Battle Nexus. So let's break that down. Andrew Jostra was the script coordinator on the recent Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie. He's also the writer of an upcoming short film sequel to that that they've got coming out. I want to. It's called something like Lost in New Jersey. Don't have full details on that, but they're making a short film as an in-between that and the full sequel. So he's going to write the Tales book. And then there was a video game in 2004 called TMNT 2 Battle Nexus. Who knows if that's related or if that's a coincidence? I don't know. IDW has definitely said, okay, so we don't have things like Transformers and G.I. Joe, so let's make a lot of Godzilla and Ninja Turtles books. But a lot of them have top tier talent, so I get it. That's an interesting idea. I wonder what kind of an audience there would be for that, like continuing the Archie Adventures continuity explicitly, because that was its own continuity. Oh, look at that. Another fan of the Archie comics era. Yeah, the wrestling outfits. I was tempted to get that action figure set because I do collect Donatello action figures, but it's a lot. Nexus does have a Kickstarter, but are you sure that it's Steve Rude? Because I was under the impression that it's one by Mike Barron. See, like those two guys co-created Nexus, but years ago they had a falling out and they sort of came to an agreement where they could each do whatever they wanted with Nexus, but they're separate from each other. And I thought that the current Kickstarter was by Mike Barron, but I could be wrong. Maybe there are two. I mean, I wouldn't say that like IDW wouldn't touch the 2003 series. They did get Kerry Randolph and Emilio. I'm forgetting his last name, but like the colorist that always works with Kerry. They both worked on the 2003 cartoon, and they just did some covers for the regular Jason Aaron series. All right, moving forward. WEBTOON has removed its daily pass option. A little bit controversial because a lot of people like that. So here's what WEBTOON used to allow readers to unlock an episode of a series with a daily pass that you could get. It's like getting a ticket or a coin or something each day, and you could unlock one episode, and then that was just unlocked. You just always had access to it once it was unlocked. That changed this week. Now, you can either watch some ads to unlock an episode for 3 days, or you can buy an episode, which is the ultimate goal of the site in the first place. To buy an episode costs 3 coins. WEBTOON sells a group of 110 coins for $9.99. So, gives you an idea of like how much of a comic you could get. An episode, like it's hard to say like exactly what an episode entails, but it's a bunch of pages. So it may seem like a tough way for readers to determine if they want to invest their money in a comic. Like if you want a taste of it, you basically have to watch some ads to check it out, or you have to spend a little bit of money and see if you like that chapter. On the other hand, this is how you create a model where the creators actually get paid. Like WEBTOON is very popular, watched by a lot of people. It's not properly monetized. It's basically being supported at this point by investors who are like, yeah, at some point WEBTOON's going to figure out how to do this, whether that's ads or paid subscriptions, but it's got to be something. Like they can't just be giving it all away. So we'll see. Kodansha's manga app works similarly. Okay, if you're caught up on a series, but it makes reading large chunks difficult. Yeah. You've got an option to get a taste of it, but you're going to have to pay for it just like anything else. Just thought I'd keep you guys updated on that because WEBTOON is definitely a way that a lot of people read comics. I mess around here and there with WEBTOON. It's not going to be as easy now. But yeah, I mess around with it here and there to see what's popular and what's interesting. Yeah, I'll be honest. I do have the ad-supported version of Netflix, for instance, because I don't have every streaming service. I don't have cable, And I don't want to pay the full price for all of them. So Netflix is one that I'm like, yeah, I guess I still want it, but I'll just take the ads that interrupt it and pay the less amount. So that's sort of what this is. I read Heartstopper on Webtoon. I've heard of that one, but I haven't read it. Last piece of news I've got, Netflix shared a One Piece update, as you can see with this little image here. Netflix hosted an event this week with announcements and trailers for all their shows. So you may have noticed that there was a Stranger Things trailer, there was a Squid Game trailer, there was a teaser for One Piece Season 2, adapting the manga. The Netflix teaser introduced the next crewmate for the Straw Hat Pirates, Tony Chopper. Very cute. Tony, if you don't read the manga or you haven't watched the anime, Tony is a reindeer who ate the human fruit, which turned him into a walking, talking animal. So he's a little different than any other animal. It's not a world where animals just walk and talk. He ate a special magical fruit that turned him into this. He's very smart, and he serves as the crew's doctor. That's cool. It's voiced and performance captured by Michaela Hoover, who has been in a bunch of stuff. We will next see her as Cat Grant in the Superman movie this summer. Oh my God, I didn't even think of that, but you're probably right. That looks like a Build-A-Bear waiting to happen. Yeah. That's good. Let's see. Speaking of Netflix, it'll be a travesty if Frankenstein doesn't get a theatrical release. I think that, like, it's not. I think it's going straight to Netflix. That's the Guillermo del Toro adaptation. Should be good. Should be good. Is it an anorexic Paddington? Go back to manga school, Dave. Read more manga. Tony Chopper is funny and cute, so I like this. I like it. Build a chopper. And that was the news. Now, I don't have a bumper to introduce the reviews, at least not yet, or the interviews, but I don't know. What do you guys think? You saw my new little intro for the news segment. Should I create little intros for every segment, or would that be obnoxious? I was just trying to have fun, but I don't know. Oops, I forgot to plug this in. Hold on. This is agony to reach my arm up like that. Whew. Okay, sorry. Frozen shoulder. Very, very painful to raise my arm up this high. And this is as high as I can raise it, too. Wait, why is that not connecting right? Did I not plug it into the right? It helps if you plug it in. USB, huh? Eventually, I'm going to talk to you guys about some comics that came out this week. I promise. I just need to set this up. There we go. Every segment. Chris, breaking news. Just finished the art, lettering, and coloring on my book. Is there a better high? People say that there's a runner's high. No, haven't really talked about the Buffy reboot since I consider that mostly a TV thing. Yeah. Sorry. Let's see. Present, extra camera, high def, add it. There we go. All right. So there were a few books. Tell you what, I'm going to start with one that I did not care for. I would have liked to have cared for it. I'm going to zoom out a little. I'm done. I gave it 3 issues. I think that's pretty generous. I think that's pretty damn generous. And if you're not enjoying it, you know, most people will give up after 1 issue. I decided to stick with it to see if anything got better. But Batman Hush 2 is just a nothing of a comic. It's just not interesting to me at all. Now, I don't really have any complaints about the artwork. I mean, if you like Jim Lee's doing Jim Lee. As to like what Hush's goal is, I guess it's like maybe to like have Batman or his sidekick kill Joker and like ruin their name, but that's just a guess. It's weird, man. And it feels like it's just like, it feels out of continuity because these days, like Jason Todd, Red Hood, the second Robin, I thought he was pretty much rehabilitated. Like, he was tougher and stuff, but he was part of the Bat family. But in Hush 2, it just seems like all of that has been walked way back, and he just hates Batman. I will say this though, I do like the art and these flashback sequences that are done in more of like like an ink wash style. I think that's the best that the art looks in this book. And that's no shade on like the colorist. I just think that Jim Lee's style with the washes give it an interesting bit of depth and roundness. I like the art quite a bit in this style. Okay, yeah, I'm not completely up to date on like where Batman is these days, but yeah, Jason has been hanging out. I'm going to buy the trade and not read it. That sounds like a comic book fan right there. Jim Lee's ink wash were a game changer in the original Hush release. It's the best that the art looks, because then I look at this and I'm like, it's still good storytelling and good composition and stuff, but some of it feels a little dated. He's got like, great rendering and stuff, but I don't always like the design of some of these characters, like turning Riddler into a thugged out like He-Man with like this real weird emo tattoo over his eye. I don't know. It's just not for me. And then I'd completely forgotten that Hush had like this sidekick henchman guy who can just, I don't know, looks like The Rock as he looks in the Moana movies. This is Maui, right? And Batman's like, oh, I've got to fight Maui. And his power is he can yell at me like Black Bolt. He can yell at you. You will fall. He runs around without any shoes. I get being strong, but like, I find it a little hard to take a villain seriously if he's running around the city without any shoes on. It just, I don't know. It's I'd forgotten this guy even existed, let alone what his powers or his motivation were. So I feel like I'm just taking a big crap on it. I'll say that the art is good, but I have no idea what kind of a story Jeff Loeb is going for here. I get that it's supposed to be a mystery, and I get that it's supposed to have internal tension with Batman's family on how they'll deal with characters like Joker and Hush. But I also feel like that's stuff that we have seen a million times, and there needs to be somebody outside of the Batman cast to have some stakes involved. Like there has to be like set up, it could be as cliche as a love interest or a wealthy like mayor or something, or, give us like, I don't know, like Joker has kidnapped a clerk from Walmart. I don't know. Give me somebody normal to care about. And that's what Batman is trying to protect or save or something. But none of that is going on. It's all just Hush sneaking into the Batcave and sending his goons after Batman and Nightwing and Batgirl. It goes after Commissioner Gordon. But I'm like, where are the real people in this world? And how do they get by day to day in Gotham? Like, what? Show me that to them it would be terrifying to come up against Joker, instead of like, Batman's like, oh, Joker, ooh, he's a handful. That Joker's he's a real menace. But he's not scared anymore of Joker. You know what I mean? I don't know. I get there. There's no tension if everyone has plot armor. Yeah, it's a little plot armory, but it's like, I can believe that Batman is in a predicament. Do I think that Batman is going to be killed in your average story? No. Do I even think he's going to be seriously maimed? No. But if you put him in a situation where I'm like, I don't know how to figure out how he's going to get out of this, that's still interesting. I'm like, okay, he's had both of his arms broken and he's tied up over a vat of acid without any of his gear, I go, okay, I guess I don't know how he's going to get out of this one, right? That's interesting. You have him care about an average person with no special abilities, and Mr. Freeze has an ice gun to that guy's head. Yeah, I believe that guy might be in danger. Things like that. But I shouldn't be giving them like how to correct it. I'm not trying to say like, this is what you should be doing. I'm really not. I'm just saying what I'd like out of a book. And yeah, I tried. I gave it 3 issues. I think it's a 6-issue series, but I'm done. I tried. Here's a book that shows me that even though these superheroes are like over 80 years old, you can still do really interesting stuff with them and take them in new directions. I love Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman. It is a blast. Look at what Hayden is doing storytelling-wise. When was the last time you saw a page laid out like this? It's still very easy to read. But look at these panel structures. It's all like shapes. And this, like look at these layouts. That is wild. All of these pages have like really innovative layouts. And it seems like basically the stories with Wonder Woman have like a roundness to them. They're soft. And then the subplots with the villains have sharp angles. But we're dealing with the 2 shapes that create great compositions, triangles and circles. They guide the eye. It's brilliant. We get introduced to a new version of a classic Wonder Woman villain, Dr. Poison. What was the character in Hellboy, BPRD, that was basically a ghost that like of ectoplasm that would like fill up a suit? Who was that? It's a German guy. I can't remember the character's name right now, but that's sort of what Dr. Poison is. Johann Kraus. Yes, Johann. That's sort of what this version of Dr. Poison is. An incorporeal being that the government has like in this old suit and so far, like Dr. Poison's annoyed because she can't create like fine-tuned poisons, which is her passion. And they're like, we're going to get you a better suit. You just keep like working for us. Dr. Poison's a real psychopath and an interesting character. In this one, we learned something a little bit more about this version of Wonder Woman, which is that she was raised by a witch, and she's basically a witch herself. And she sort of prays to the Greek gods and creates a temple for herself in the woods, sort of a base of operations. But look at how beautiful this is. It all emanates. It feels like it's emanating. This is a very unique panel layout, and I'm all here for it. I am down for discovering something new. But yeah, anytime there's something sort of dangerous or evil, the panels get a little jagged. I think it's some really creative storytelling beyond just how fun this is. So anyway, I strongly recommend it. This starts a new story. It's issue 8, but it starts a new story. Issue 8 may seem like a good amount, but it's still a good jumping on point. I would say that you could read this. And if you haven't read the previous 7 issues, I think everything's going to make sense to you. I really do. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed because the core of Wonder Woman her personality shines through, even though she was raised in different circumstances. That's always an interesting story, I think, to address, nature versus nurture. And this seems to firmly come down on the side, at least for Wonder Woman, that the nurture part isn't going to affect her nature. She's a good, compassionate person. She might use different tools to get her mission done. She might have a different perspective on the world, which is going to affect her decision making. But she still has compassion even for her enemies. But when she decides to fight, boy, is she a badass. I like it. I like it a lot. Really good issue. It's a great book. It is sort of a Fortress of Solitude. It's not totally dissimilar. I didn't even realize the difference in why the panels were shaped that way. That's so cool. Like when all the shots were Dutch angles when the bad guys were on screen in Batman 66. Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. You don't need to pick up on that. You feel it. If you look at this, it sort of brings you in and out and stuff, like it's like a waves of the ocean. It's soothing. It flows. It's different, but it flows. And then you don't necessarily sense it here, but like things pointing at sharp angles like that, it just feels off. So that's what I love about this, is that Hayden Sherman isn't just telling the story that the script gave. The artist is contributing to a feeling that we get when we see this, which is like what a good film can do, but they've got access to, say, musical cues, and they can have editing and color corrections and all these technical aspects that can sort of aid in getting something across. Here, it's all an artist making some very important decisions. So Hayden Sherman is really a powerful force on why Absolute Wonder Woman is so special, but it's really, really cool. It's still got like your action and adventure and intrigue, but it's got like new mythology and great storytelling. I really recommend it, folks. Here's another one that's like one of my favorites this week. Probably my two favorites were Absolute Wonder Woman and Feral, I think. I'll keep thinking about it as I talk about it. We're at issue 13. And by the way, Feral does some variant covers, kind of like our guest, Mark Spears, has done variants, and he's done homage variants and stuff. Feral, because it's sort of a horror book, but like focused on cats, it'll do a lot of parodies of famous horror movies. I would have loved to have gotten a copy of the variant for this one because I love Friday the 13th. And it like has like, I think it was the poster for 6, which is called, it was either 6 or 7, was called Jason Lives. And it has like a hockey mask that's sort of still cat-like, and it says 9 lives. I was like, that's clever. That's cool. There you go. You guys are still getting it on this one. Yeah. Sorry, there's always a little bit of a delay. But I'm really impressed with the Absolute stuff. Anyway, I couldn't find the variant, so I got like the regular one. That's totally fine. We're at a point where we have a pretty good cast of characters. At first glance, if you're just jumping in, this looks like a bunch of cats. But each of these cats is very different and really represents the kind of different pets you can have. These are all house cats, except for Lucky. Lucky has like lived out in the wild a little bit. This orange one, this tabby. But for instance, Chloe was owned by a cat hoarder and is just totally traumatized, but like wants to be around people because doesn't think she can take care of herself. Lord was like a rascal as a kitten, and his owners declawed him. So he's actually not able to defend himself very well out in the wild. I think this one was Ghost, and Ghost is a kitty that's deaf. So she just sort of follows the others. She seems to be smart and figures things out on her own, but she's a deaf kitty. Anyway, it's a wide variety of cats is all I'm trying to get at. And they're in a world where there's a super rabies, which basically acts like a zombie plague. So what they're trying to do is they see a pet store that is locked up, and they want to get into this pet store, and they have to figure out how they can get from like the mountains through like a town full of like, you know, like basically zombie dogs and cats and raccoons and stuff. How can they get there? So this issue is all sort of about planning a way across. And of course, it goes bad. It starts to rain while they're trying to like climb a cable. So they're all slipping around and stuff. Just great stuff. Great personalities, great drama and conflict, because some of them don't like each other and don't trust each other anymore, but they're working towards a goal that feels realistic. Like if you were in this world, you'd want to get somewhere safe. And we're basically entering a version of Dawn of the Dead, where the human survivors got into a mall and barricaded it. And it just keeps moving. They bump into some new characters in this. You know what? I won't spoil it, but we keep meeting new characters. There's new sort of the first 6 or 7 issues, they were all on the run in the wild. Then the next several issues, they were trying to get out of a hoarder's house or just survive like a hoarder that was like really bad. And now they're trying to get into a pet store. These are all really interesting ideas. Trish Forstner creates characters that still look like convincing cats. They're not being too anthropomorphic. You know, they don't pick up things with their paws and like, you know, use a fork and knife to eat or anything. But their faces are very expressive. That's where the cartooning comes in. Gigi lost an eye in the last story. It's great, folks. I have no, like, it's horror, but it's also like epic adventure. It reminds me in some ways, beyond the zombie connotations that I've listed, like Dawn of the Dead, it reminds me of Watership Down or books like that, where it's like it's Homer's The Odyssey. You know, these characters are going to go as far from home as possible, basically, and learn things along the way. But they're going to have to pay a price for that boon before they come home. I'm sure at the end. Yeah, it is a little bit like Watership Down. It's epic. It doesn't follow the exact same beats or the exact same characters, but it's the same gist of like, you know, and Watership Down was The Odyssey. So yeah. Aristocats meets The Walking Dead. Visually and tonally, yes, but story-wise, not quite the same, for whatever it's worth. Love this book. This was a great issue with just, I like it when a comic is like telling a big story, but within the context of a single issue can give you a single problem to overcome. And in this one, the problem to overcome is how do they get into the pet store? And it doesn't go easy. So anyway, I've really been enjoying it. There were 2 Energon Universe books this week, G.I. Joe and Void Rivals. G.I. Joe is a bit more of a standalone issue for issue 7, but that's okay because we just sort of went through a big arc for the first 6 issues, including a big fight with the terrorists Cobra, okay? And this introduces that there is actually a quiet second Joe team that Colonel Hawk is keeping a secret from the main Joe team. And we get introduced to the Energon Universe versions of, well, primarily, honestly, Beachhead. And Beachhead is basically one of the best sort of like infiltrators and sort of night operations, like almost wet work stuff. And his monologue is, he knows that the military wants him to basically step back and become a trainer at this point and pass on his skills, but he's not ready to retire. And he's trying to prove himself that he can do this mission and still be of use to G.I. Joe. And the mission just goes totally foobar because for some reason, the super rich guy that Beachhead is supposed to steal something from, this guy's hired Major Blood and his Bloodhounds. Sequence, we get to know Beachhead really well as a character that's been important in the original comics, but hasn't really gotten this level of personality growth. The main G.I. Joe book has always focused on a few other characters. Yeah, it's a really cool take on the Night Force concept. If you have ever gotten any G.I. Joes, Night Force is sort of like a repainted version of a bunch of figures, like with Night Gear. This was awesome, though, by the end, to realize that like there's a stealth G.I. Joe unit being formed, sort of off the books. Oh, maybe you're right. I didn't even consider that Major Blood may have also been trying to steal the object. That's an interesting... Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. He's dangerous in this. Let's see. What is your G.I. Joe codename? So, I technically have one. Because when I was a kid, I got G.I. Joe action figures. And one of the things they let you do was mail-aways. Sometimes they would have a figure or maybe a small vehicle, things like that, repaints mostly. But they would have things that you could mail away for. And to do that, you had to collect what are called flag points. The back of an action figure or the back of a vehicle had something like different values of flag points. And you would collect those. You'd send them in with a little bit of money, and you could get different like action figures and stuff. Well, they had one that was create yourself as a G.I. Joe. And they had basically like, this was before computers, folks. So they had sort of like a dossier, and you could check off your skills and your personality traits. And then they would like print off a custom dossier for you. You had to give yourself a nickname, and they give you a figure that had like a helmet. So it could be anybody. And I was a kid. I called myself Whirlwind, which is not a very good name. Probably should have been like a Think Tank or something like that. But I loved G.I. Joe as a kid, and I like this new version and where it's going. The last issue set up some big stuff with Transformers and Mask, which I wasn't expecting. Oh, no, not the last issue of G.I. Joe. That was the Free Comic Book Day issue. So there's some stuff coming there. This was just sort of like setting up sort of a side story that'll like, I think a subplot that will be simmering in the background. But I liked how they defined Beachhead. I thought it was really well done. The idea of like one that's like not old, but older, and like, but he still wants to do his job. He still wants to work. He wants to be valuable. And I get that. That's true. There was a driver of a vehicle called Skidmark, folks. There were some bad names, bad code names for both G.I. Joe and Transformers here and there, but like Skidmark was probably the worst. Skidmark was probably the worst. Flag points is how I learned 6 to 8 weeks is the longest time to wait. 6 to 8 weeks doesn't sound that long, but as a kid, 6 to 8 weeks is like interminable. And then you forget, and then all of a sudden one day you get a surprise in the mail. Looks like a go job for a snow job. I mean, technically one of the first Joes is Stalker, and that name has a very different connotation now than it did then. But anyway, I love G.I. Joe, and I like this new interpretation just fine. I'm glad I still get my original G.I. Joe, but I like this version. It's cool. And I like some of the updated designs that the artists are doing for the costumes. Feels very, very appropriate. It's going in some interesting directions anyway. I didn't realize, but Void Rivals, already at issue 19, by the way, has a new artist. Lorenzo De Felici was the regular artist from day one, but now there is a new artist, Connor Hughes. But I'll tell you something. Connor Hughes is a really good artist. This looks weird, right? This is an alien bounty hunter called the Skuxoid, who somebody from Cobra Law had cut in half, and we figured he was dead. No, he regrows if there's a big enough chunk of him. So now there are 2 Skuxoids. And one of them is like, no, this is what happens to us. It's happened to me before. He's like, I think that there's like a third one of us out there somewhere. They also introduce the Junkions, which are some Transformers. So there's no Derek and Salila, the original characters we met in this issue. This issue is just alien stuff, but it all connects. It all connects. I think Connor Hughes is a really good artist, though. Like very, very expressive for such like a pig-faced weirdo alien. I like it. The action, like, look at that's a pretty cool shot of like someone jumping in unexpectedly and then boom, like this big electrical burst that throws everybody everywhere. So yeah, they've got a good. It's encouraging to see new people come into the Energon universe that are still like, top tier like this, because I'm a little worried what's going to happen after issue 24 of Transformers, which is just a fantastic comic right now. But 24 is the last issue written by Daniel Warren Johnson. Oh yeah. I never would have expected Cobra Law to be anything that I'd be into. Did not care for it as an action figure. Did not care for it in the animated movie. So glad that Larry Hama never used Cobra Law in the comics. But in a shared universe, Cobra Law absolutely despising Transformers and going into outer space has been so super entertaining. Super good. Yep. There was a lot explained about Skuxoid in this. A character that was only in something like 2 episodes of season 3 of the cartoon, maybe 3 episodes. He was just a bounty hunter. Like, he wasn't important at all. But like, Kirkman likes this character and has really fleshed him out and created a whole mythology behind him that's really fun. Don't be sad about Daniel Warren Johnson leaving Transformers. Be happy it happened. I am. It was an unexpected surprise how good this has been. And yeah, I'm okay with it. Look, this will free him up to do something else, and I know that I'm going to be excited by it. So I am okay. I've been enjoying it. Super positive. The last book I personally read this week was the latest issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, which just digs into the mythology of Mysterio in this. There's, again, artist David Messina, who is pretty good in this issue. I wish Marco Cicchetto could do every issue, but maybe that's not realistic. All I can say is that, like, we learn there are 5 people that share the Mysterio powers and identity, and we know that Gwen Stacy is one. And in this issue, we learn that 2 more regular characters are part of that secret cult. And in this world, Mysterio knows that the Maker reshaped reality, went back in time and took all the superheroes out and tried to reshape things. So Mysterio sort of has somewhat altruistic goals of like uncovering the hidden truth, but is using some underhanded means to do that. Saw slow, or do you mean so slow? I am getting a little tired of the very slow burn of Ultimate Spider-Man. I can understand that. It's weird. It's like I want more time with Peter Parker and his family. I want to know this version of a more mature Spider-Man. But to keep the story moving, you got to throw in some of these weirdos that he fights and stuff. And I think I sort of know what you mean about how it feels so slow, but it's also like this. The regular Spider-Man book has the advantage of having all of these story elements for like 60 years or so. And therefore, you actually get to tell main Amazing Spider-Man or Spectacular Spider-Man stories. You get to tell them in shorthand because you're like, look, a story can't have everything all the time. So maybe this 6-issue story, I'll give you an example. Kraven's Last Hunt. That was in the 80s, the late 80s. Kraven's Last Hunt is like one of my favorite stories, but it doesn't have a lot of the sort of like romance and soap opera drama like that. It doesn't have a lot of like Peter Parker balancing work, and it doesn't have a lot of jokes. But it's like, it just gives me such a good story that I'm like, that's okay. I got that in the story before. I'm getting that in the story after. This is rebuilding a whole new mythology. So it can't be everything, right? That said, there are obviously ways of building it better and worse. You know, like Absolute Wonder Woman just balances everything for me. This one doesn't give me like Wonder Woman versus the Tetracide, a gigantic monster. It doesn't give me too much, you know, romantic stuff with Steve Trevor. It doesn't give me a whole lot about Cersei. But it gave me a good full story. Most of Ultimate Spider-Man does as well. I would say that the Ultimate titles I like a little bit more have become the Ultimates and Ultimate X-Men, because Ultimate X-Men is not trying to rebuild stuff that we already know, that we want to get caught up on. You know, like Ultimate Spider-Man is still sort of like, bet you'd like to know a little bit more about what J. Jonah Jameson does at work. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just throwing out all my thoughts at once. I don't have like, you know, a coherent essay here. I like it. I don't love it. I liked the Ultimate Spider-Man story arc of Peter and Harry on the run in the Savage Land from Kraven. I did like that. I like the ideas in it. But it does sort of feel like we're trying to rebuild to get somewhere closer to like what we know in the main universe. Whereas Absolute Wonder Woman, and I would argue Absolute Batman and Ultimate X-Men are just trying new things. They're just like, they're using like a character or a power or a setting that we know, but only as it suits the story. Whereas I would say Ultimate Spider-Man, Absolute Superman, sort of Ultimate Black Panther, they're sort of rebuilding a lot of what we know, but in a different context. So that's everything that came out. What was my pick for best book of the week? Surprisingly enough, no. These were both fun. Void Rivals and G.I. Joe were fun, but it's going to be between these two books. These were the two things that I had the most fun reading this week. And I think I actually had more fun reading Feral. However, because of the storytelling choices that Hayden Sherman made in this, I think this is my pick of the week, because sometimes I just really appreciate on a technical level what you can do with a comic book. And for me, it's that odd paneling that was used for this issue, with the soft curves for Wonder Woman and the harsh angles for the villains. It's different. It gave me a feeling. I liked how this pushed some storytelling boundaries of what you can do with a comic book. So while I maybe had a little more fun, and this is a super strong recommend, my pick for book of the week is going to be Absolute Wonder Woman issue 8. So if you haven't read this, I would say this is a great jumping on point. Issue 8. Great jumping on point. Did I feel they were picking on Barbara? I think that I could see how Barbara would feel that way, but no, I don't think that they actually were. But it was very cleverly written where you can see both sides. Thank you for the super chat. It may be off topic, but which Tom King book would you recommend for beginners? It's a good question. Probably Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Because it's still sort of superheroes, which a lot of comic book readers like are sort of familiar with, but it tells a one and done story. It helps you get to know the character without any need for knowledge of the past. It tells a very unique and cool story that and shows what makes Supergirl Supergirl instead of Superman. Helen of Wyndhorn might be my personal favorite, but I think for somebody that hasn't read him before, I would recommend Supergirl as my entry point. There's a lot of things that I could recommend, though. It would depend. Like if somebody told me, Chris, I love interpersonal drama, I'd be like, oh, maybe Human Target. Or they're like, I like like more of a murder mystery type thing. I go, okay, well, maybe Vision is what's going to be right for you. It all depends on what that person tells me they like. But generally, I think Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow would be a pretty strong recommend for somebody new to that writer. Yeah. Let's see. Did you see the Amazon plug in the Invincible Spider-Man crossover reprint? I didn't see the reprint. I think West Coast Dave Vengers got one. Chris, I love interpersonal drama. What can I do to you to have some interpersonal drama? Just next time you see me, go like, hey, buddy, and hit my bad shoulder, which would cause me absolute agony. And I know that you know that. So that would definitely create some conflict between us. It's like ostensibly you're trying to be nice, like, hey, buddy, but you're hurting me. Yeah, I was thinking of drawing tonight, but I ended up really enjoying doing that interview with Mark at the beginning. So I went a little longer there. And I think this is a decent place to start wrapping things up. Got to get some food. I'm hard at work on a couple things for you guys. First of all, I'm working on the next comic tropes. It's going a little slower than I expected, but that's just because I'm trying to make it the best I can. There's a good chance, though, that I could have it out this coming weekend. There's a good chance. We'll see. I'm always a little later than I expect to be, but that's what I'm aiming for. Tomorrow, Jim and I are going to record a new trash movie bonanza. We haven't given you one of those in a while, and I'm excited to share our movie choice and thoughts on another one there. And then I've been going back into this channel, like for these live streams, and pulling out the interview segment and trying to upload those separately in a playlist just called like interviews. And I know some of them might be a little dated because usually I have people on to sort of plug things, but we always do at least a few questions talking about that person's style of doing work or collaborating or their work history. So I think that there's always something kind of useful there. And I've just sort of been jumping back and forth, grabbing some of those. Yeah, so hopefully, if you're like, all I'm interested in is the interview, people can just jump straight to that. I'm glad that you liked the Robot Jocks episode. Thank you. Thank you. I wish I had a factor meal upstairs, but I think I've got salads or the makings for a salad. So I think that's what I'm going to do tonight personally. Is there anything else to talk about sort of like business around the show? I stopped by my P.O. box today. I was mailing out some birthday stuff for my father and sister and picked up some, I think there were 5 packages at the P.O. box. I try to wait until there's about 10 comics before I do a stream opening the P.O. box, but there's already 5. So, what video will you make for my birthday? Well, I guess the one that I'm working on right now, which I'm not sure if it'll like mean as much to you, but I will say that later this month, I'm going to do one on All-Star Superman because I was talking earlier. I love Grant Morrison. I love Frank Quitely. And the more time that's passed, the more I think that All-Star Superman is my personal favorite Superman story. Yeah, it's at least in the top 3. I also love some of the Alan Moore Superman stories. What do you get for the man who has everything? Boy, that's a good one. But anyway, so that's some of the stuff that I'm working on. Thank you for all the chat tonight. Thank you for the super chats. That was really cool. Really appreciate it. And yeah, gonna go try to eat something healthy. Been really focusing on just trying to eat healthy, lose some weight, cut out all snacks. And yeah. Yes, I do think that this month I'll probably, I just don't know exactly when yet, but I'll announce it. I probably will do an indie comics, like anyone that wants to promote their book can jump in. And I'll probably just start it a lot earlier in the day because those have been going like, I didn't know that those would be so popular. I hope that I can get like mostly new people because I do think that that's the most fair, but you know, the chaos is part of the fun of it. I'll just open the doors to anyone that wants to. Thank you, Mandela Butterfly. Hope your shoulder gets better. Someday it will. Someday it will. What I'm doing right now, I'll just keep you guys updated, like last minute stuff. But I saw my doctor, got a referral to orthopedics. They're the people that can like really fix problems like this. And apparently they're super backed up. So I saw my doctor just over a week ago. She said it's probably going to take about 3 weeks for them to get in touch with you to schedule when they can help you. What I'm hoping to do is just tell them, look, I've dealt with this before. The only thing that helped was a cortisone shot. Can I please get one of those? We'll see. So that's my plan right now, but it's probably still going to take a few more weeks. Prepared for it to possibly take as much as 2 months from now. So it really, really, really hurts all the time. And it does slow me down on making this show because like right now I can like mostly let my arm just hang down and that's what feels most comfortable. But like if I have it up here to type and use the mouse, it really hurts. But what can you do? Anyway, you guys are great. Thank you everybody for watching. Tell you what, that was not easy. Double salute. Take care. Keep reading comics.